Hello everybody, Disciple here once again with Hearthstone Curios. So the journey to Goro has double the class legendaries of a normal expansion since it has both quests and legendary minions for each class. Now when you combine these with some of the awesome neutral legendaries with the set, that's a lot of cards to collect. But you don't need to break your wallet to be able to compete on the ladder. Well, maybe not break it too much at least. That's why we thought today we'd go over some of the best legendaries to craft for competitive play in Journey to Goro so that you don't waste your time with some of the others that aren't necessarily worth your money. Let's get right into it. So the first legendary from Goro that you should absolutely craft is the Caverns below. Although it may be a class legendary and so is limited in what decks it can be in, Caverns Rogue is one of the strongest decks in the game right now. What's more, the cost of the decks is pretty much just caverns, patches, and preparations, with the rest of the cards being commons and rares, as some lists have even moved away from including Edwin Van Cleef. This means if you have the dust to craft caverns, you're probably already pretty close to a tier 1 deck. Additionally, unless Caverns gets nerfed, it'll likely be a really strong deck the entire time it's in standard, and if it does get nerfed, you get your full 1600 dust refund. Definitely one of the strongest, if not the strongest legendaries in the set, and probably the most likely to get nerfed as well, Caverns is definitely a really solid card to craft. Now the next legendary we'll be taking a look at is another quest that's made its way into a tier 1 deck, and that's Fire Plume's Heart. Having a quest that almost always wins you the late game and being able to defend yourself really well as part of fulfilling that quest is just insane, and that's exactly what Fire Plume's Heart does. If anything's competing with the Caverns below for the strongest card in the set, it's probably this warrior quest. It may only be good in a dedicated deck with enough taunt minions to support it, but as long as there are taunts and warrior removal spells, it'll pretty much always work. Now Taunt Warrior is definitely more expensive than Quest Rogue, so if you don't have the cards for it, definitely don't craft Fire Plume's Heart unless you really want to go all out. Still, the power level on this card is insane, and it's the next most likely thing from Goro to get nerfed after Quest Rogue, so if you do want to try playing Taunt Warrior at some point, or you think you will in the future, this is a super safe craft. The fact that you can just fill your deck with removal spells and defensive minions, and then you have a built-in late game with this quest that gives you an insane hero power, along with the other decently strong minions that you're still continuing to play. This is just a very straightforward and easy deck to play that can counter aggro really well and should be strong for quite a long time. Now, in general, neutral legendaries are way better crafts than class legendaries since they can go in way more decks and they give you a bit more value for your dust. However, we mentioned these class legendaries first because the neutral legendaries just aren't quite as strong in Goro as some of the class ones, ranging from decent to completely unplayable. Still, the other class legendaries you should craft all only go in specific decks that are worse than Quest Warrior and Quest Rogue. The only exception is maybe Sherazin, Corpse Flower, and Miracle Rogue, but it's kind of more of a cute card than it is actually necessary to the function of the deck. So let's take a look at two of the neutral legendaries that are actually pretty decent. First up, we have Trump's favorite card, Elise the Trailblazer. Elise is currently mainly played in Handlock, but if there are bans or nerfs on some of the ultra-fast combo decks, or if more generic control variants get a little bit better, Elise is going to be really strong in pretty much all of them. The body is solid for the mana cost, and you're never going to feel bad about playing a 5 mana 5/5, and when you draw the pack, you're getting 5 cards for the price of 1. Albeit that, on average, they'll be worse than the 5 cards from your deck, they still could be insanely good, and you're still essentially drawing 5 cards with a 2 mana spell. Elise is definitely just a solid mid-cost value minion, and that's something that we'll see get played quite a good amount. If you look at cards like Sylvanas and Ragnaros that were played in the past, this one definitely fits that. It's pretty general use, it goes very well in control decks, but it could also be in mid-range as well, and it's definitely a solid investment if you want to play any mid-range or control deck. Now, the only other neutral legendary in Goro that has very high potential at the moment is Spirit Singer Umbra. Umbra is a really strong engine card, and triggering your death rattles when they come into play is a pretty insane ability. It's incredibly strong in Quest Priests and other N'Zoth decks should they become good, but it's also just a card that could be really broken if it ever gets the right pieces to go with it. Now in Wild, there's definitely some really gross things you can do with Spirit Singer Umbra, Baron Rivendare, Leper Gnomes, Thaurissan, and lots of other cards. it might never be strong enough for Standard, since cards like this are generally either unplayable or broken, and Blizz will probably try and avoid making it broken altogether, but there's a good chance Spirit Singer Umbra is a pretty strong card at some point, and that's why it's definitely worth a craft. Even if you're not necessarily playing Wild now, if Blizzard supports Wild more in the future, or the cards and decks you like now rotate out in the future, then it's definitely a card that probably will see a bit of play since the combos are just really so insane. For example, if you steal your enemy's Sylvanas, then the Sylvanas that you steal can steal something else, and if that happens to be a Sylvanas because you're playing against another crazy deck that's able to make all sorts of things, then you can just chain and steal the entire board. It's definitely more of a fun card, but it does have a lot of potential, and it's not one I think you should sleep on, especially if people try experimenting with a few more decks and really find its place. So those are the legendaries we think that you guys should craft first from Journey to Goro. One thing that we've discovered a lot is that a lot of the quests just aren't very good because they take up a slot in your hand, and it just makes your deck far less consistent while also forcing you to play some things that you don't necessarily want to. Mid-range Hunter is just way better than Quest Hunter at the moment, and Ramp Druid is even stronger than Quest Druid because by the time you can finish your Druid quest, Ramp Druid would have gotten to 10 mana anyway, and it doesn't really matter if you can play your minions for 0. Quest Paladin is definitely the weakest of all of them, and it's a pretty trash card altogether. You might as well just play mid-range Paladin. And at that point, you're not really including any legendaries from this set, you're really just including legendaries from the base set or from the previous expansions. So Journey to Goro didn't have many must-crafts, but the ones that we gave you should be a good start if you really are looking to make some very powerful current decks. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
We'll be right back.